What if the way older men masturbate is silently damaging their health after 60? Urologists say your habits in private may be quietly affecting your vitality, confidence, and intimacy. In this video, we uncover 5 masturbation secrets older men wish they had learned decades earlier. At 74, he sat across from me in quiet discomfort. His hands trembled not from Parkinson's, nor from any disease I could diagnose with a test, but from something more common and far more silent. He looked me in the eyes, lowered his voice, and said, "Doctor, I didn't know. I didn't know I was hurting myself." He wasn't talking about some external injury. He was speaking about the quiet rituals we carry through life, the ones no one ever really talks about, especially not after a certain age. For years, he had been doing what millions of older men still do behind closed doors: masturbation. He thought it was harmless, natural, even healthy. But like many men, he had no idea that after 60, things change. The rules change. The impact changes. And no one had ever told him. He's not alone. My name is Dr. Mohit Kara. I've spent over 30 years as a urologist, working with men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, men who want to protect their dignity, their vitality, and the part of themselves they were taught to ignore the older they got. I'm here to have the conversation most doctors avoid. Because the truth is, masturbation after 60 isn't the same as it was when you were 30. And if you don't adapt, it can affect your body, your mood, even your sense of self. You've heard it's natural. You've heard it's fine. But what if I told you that how you do it matters more than whether you do it at all? In this video, I'll share 5 critical truths, 5 masturbation secrets that many older men wish they had known earlier in life. These are not just tips. They are eye-opening shifts in how we think about male aging, intimacy, and health. From circulation and prostate care to emotional connection and confidence, this may be one of the most important conversations you hear this year. And please, stay with me until the end, because the 5th secret could change the way you age, the way you connect, and the way you live for years to come. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit that button, turn on the bell, because this channel is built for men like you, men who still care about their health, their truth, and their future. If what I'm saying already speaks to something inside you, type 1 in the comments to let me know you're here. If not, type 0. Either way, I appreciate your honesty. Now let's begin with the first secret, something that has quietly reshaped the lives of thousands of older men, once they finally understood it. Secret 1. Your erection is no longer the whole story. And that's okay. Let me tell you about a man I'll never forget. He was 72 years old. He sat across from me, eyes clouded with frustration, his voice carrying the weight of quiet shame. He leaned in and asked, "Doc, I can't do what I used to. Does that mean I'm no longer a man?" That question didn't come from vanity. It came from fear. And I've heard it from hundreds of men just like him, good men, honest men who silently wonder if a change in their body means the end of their identity. They notice things aren't as firm, as fast, or as reliable as they used to be. And too often, they assume that means their sexuality is fading away, maybe even gone. But here's what I wish every man over 60 could hear. Your erection is no longer the whole story. And that doesn't mean something is wrong. It means something is changing. That's not failure. That's evolution. As we get older, our bodies naturally shift. Blood doesn't move quite as fast. Hormones don't surge the way they used to. Nerves become more sensitive or slower to respond. What once happened without thought now takes a little more time, more patience, and a different kind of awareness. But that doesn't mean your sexuality is broken. It means it's becoming something deeper. You see, we were raised in a world that equated manhood with performance, where being a man meant being hard, lasting long, and never showing vulnerability. We were never taught how to grow into this stage of life with grace. No one said to us, hey, connection still matters. So does pleasure. And most of us never knew that a perfect erection is not required for either one. I've worked with men who spent years quietly believing they were broken, when all they really needed was a new understanding of how their body and their desire was evolving. Here's the truth. Orgasm and erection are not the same thing. You can still experience release. You can still feel emotionally close to someone. You can still find deep physical satisfaction, even if the response isn't exactly what it used to be. But because no one told us that, many men suffer in silence, thinking they've lost something that was never really gone. It just changed shape. What matters most now isn't pressure. It's presence. It's not about proving anything. It's about allowing yourself permission to be real. When you stop chasing what used to be and start exploring what is, you open the door to a new kind of intimacy. One built on curiosity, patience, and self-respect. That's why this first truth is so important. Because I've seen what happens when men finally embrace it. Their relationships grow stronger. Their self-worth returns. And they begin to realize they're still whole, still capable of feeling, and still deserving of pleasure no matter what age they are. Secret 2. Masturbation isn't just physical, it's emotional and neurological. Not long ago, I sat with a retired veteran in his late 70s. His name was Howard. There was no medical emergency, no pain, no blood work to analyse. What brought him in was something far less visible. He leaned in and said, "Doc, I don't feel anything anymore, not just sexually anything." At first, we both assumed it was physical. Hormones, maybe circulation. But the longer we talked, the clearer it became this wasn't about function. It was about emotion, about silence, about habits that had quietly become coping mechanisms. Howard had been masturbating almost every night, but not from desire, not from lust. He was doing it the way some people reach for a glass of wine or turn on the TV to escape. He didn't even realize that what started as comfort had become routine. His body went through the motions, but the meaning had faded. And that changed everything for both of us. Because here's a truth I wish more men in their 60s, 70s and beyond knew. Masturbation isn't just about release. It's not just about sex. It's tied to something much deeper: your brain, your nervous system, your emotions. After orgasm, the body releases powerful chemicals: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. These are the same compounds that help regulate sleep, reduce anxiety, and elevate mood. They're not just pleasure chemicals. They're part of what helps us feel alive. For many older men, especially those living alone, this simple act becomes more than physical. It becomes a way to manage stress, feel connection, and stay grounded. But when it's done without intention, just to pass time or avoid uncomfortable feelings, it can start to feel empty. That's what happened to Howard. The habit stayed, but the meaning disappeared. You see, we were raised to be strong, to suppress emotion, to never show weakness. So when the only time we allow ourselves to feel anything is in private, during a few quiet minutes of self-touch, that moment becomes more than physical. It becomes survival. It becomes the only place where emotion is allowed to live. But most men never realize this. They think it's just an old habit from youth. They don't understand their bodies are still reaching not just for pleasure, but for peace. The danger isn't in the act itself. It's in doing it mindlessly. When masturbation becomes a way to escape rather than to connect, something important is lost. But when you bring awareness into it, when you approach it with presence, it transforms. It becomes an act of emotional clarity, of healing, of caring for a body and a spirit that have carried you through decades of life. And yes, at this stage of life, that still matters. It matters more than ever. Secret 3, use it or lose it, is real, but not what you think. Let me tell you about Roy. He was 74, a widower, and had just started dating again after more than 10 years alone. But when he came to see me, he wasn't smiling, he wasn't excited, he was ashamed. I finally found someone, he said. But my body, it doesn't work anymore. The disappointment in his voice was almost unbearable. He wasn't angry, he wasn't frustrated, he was heartbroken. Roy thought something inside him had broken. He believed it was too late, that maybe age had quietly closed the door on that part of his life. But what he didn't know, what most older men are never told, is that it wasn't dysfunction. It was disuse. That truth right there, it changes everything. You see, your sexual function isn't just tied to your age. It's tied to your activity. Just like your muscles weaken when you stop using them, the blood vessels and tissue in your penis are no different. When there's no stimulation for a long time, the system begins to shut down. Nerve endings dull. Elasticity fades. Blood flow slows. And the worst part? No one tells you it's happening until it already has. Roy hadn't touched himself in years. Not because he didn't want to, but because he thought it no longer mattered. Life had dulled his desire. He accepted it as just another part of getting older. But inside, his body was responding to that neglect. Not with anger, not with pain, just with slow, quiet retreat. Doors that could have stayed open began to close. Here's the good news. It wasn't too late for Roy. And it's not too late for you either. With gentle, consistent touch, without pressure or performance, his body began to remember. It didn't happen overnight, but little by little, sensation returned, and with it, a piece of his confidence came back to life. So many older men believe that if they don't have a partner, there's no point in caring about this part of themselves. They let it go, thinking it's selfish or shameful or simply irrelevant. But that belief isn't just wrong, it's harmful. Because masturbation at this age is not just about pleasure, it's about maintenance. It's about reminding your nervous system, your blood vessels, your sense of self that you're still here, still worthy, still whole. It's not about clinging to youth. It's about honoring the life still inside you. You still matter. And your body still wants to respond if you give it the chance. Secret 4. How porn quietly dulls real intimacy. Let me introduce you to Ernest. He was 68, a widower, and came to see me one late evening, not because something hurt, but because something inside had gone quiet. He looked at me and said, "I still touch myself, but I don't feel anything. Not really. It's like I'm watching it happen from far away." That sentence stuck with me, because I've heard it more times than I can count. At first, Ernest thought it was just aging. Maybe his nerves had dulled. Maybe his hormones were off. But the more we talked, the more the truth came into focus. Every night for years, he had relied on porn not out of obsession, but out of habit. It had become his comfort, his escape, his ritual. What he didn't realize was that this routine was quietly draining his ability to feel in real life. And he's not the only one. This is a truth many older men wish they had understood earlier. As your brain ages, it becomes less adaptable. It doesn't bounce back the way it once did. And if you've been using porn as your primary form of stimulation, especially for years, your brain slowly begins to adapt to that fast, intense, artificial input. Porn triggers a rush of dopamine, your brain's pleasure chemical. But it's not a gentle wave. It's a flood. And over time, your brain gets used to that flood. It starts needing more and more intensity just to feel the same amount of pleasure. Eventually, the real world can't keep up. Touch from a real person, or even from yourself, begins to feel distant, dull, unsatisfying. What makes this especially dangerous is how gradual it is. It feels like comfort at first. It feels harmless. But then one day, you wake up and realize that images on a screen spark more response than actual connection. That your imagination is silent. That your body feels numb, even if your heart still wants to feel something. Ernest described it perfectly. He said it felt like being in a room with the lights on, but no windows. He could see, but he couldn't connect. So we worked together, slowly, without judgment. Step by step, we helped him step away from the screen. We helped him turn inward instead of outward, toward his breath, his body, and the quiet world within him that had gone dark. And something incredible happened. Within weeks, sensation started to return. His imagination lit up again. His sensitivity came back, not just physically, but emotionally. He didn't just reclaim his body. He reclaimed a part of himself he thought was gone. I only wish he had started sooner. It could have saved him years of numbness. Secret 5. Masturbation can be a lifeline, not a liability. Walter was 75. A quiet man. Gentle voice. Polite. Respectful. He had come in for a routine checkup, nothing urgent, just the kind of visit where we talk about blood pressure, medications, maybe some aches and pains. But as I wrapped things up, He hesitated. He glanced down, then looked back at me and asked, "Doctor, is it still okay to touch myself at this age?" That question stopped me not because it was rare, but because I had heard it too many times before. Always asked in the same way. Low voice, eyes full of uncertainty, and always with that same undertone of embarrassment, like they were confessing something shameful. But what Walter didn't know, and what I wish every man over 60 could understand, is this. Masturbation, especially at your age, might be one of the most important acts of self-care you still have. It's not something to be hidden, not something to be ashamed of. Done with presence, intention, and care, masturbation offers so much more than sexual release. It keeps your pelvic tissue healthy by encouraging circulation. It supports your prostate by helping clear fluids that would otherwise stagnate. It eases anxiety, improves sleep, and gently lifts mood by triggering calming neurochemicals like dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. But more than all that, it keeps you connected to the part of yourself that still feels alive. The part of you that still wants, still remembers, still holds on to identity. Desire doesn't vanish with age. It just gets quieter. And if you stop listening to it, it doesn't go away, it turns into something else. Into disconnection, into loneliness. Walter had lost his wife years ago, and when she passed, he stopped everything. No intimacy, no pleasure, no self-touch. I thought it was inappropriate, he told me. I didn't think I was allowed to still be that kind of man. That sentence hit me hard, because I've heard it so many times. We live in a culture that teaches older men to shrink, to disappear, to stop feeling. We're told to go quietly, to let desire die with time. But that's a cruel myth. When Walter began to reconnect with himself gently, without shame or expectation, his life changed. His mood lifted. He started sleeping better. He smiled more. And no, he wasn't chasing some version of youth. He wasn't trying to reclaim the past. He was reclaiming his dignity. That's what masturbation can be in the later years of life, not an escape, but a return. A way of saying to yourself, I still matter. Conclusion 5. Masturbation secrets. Older men wish they knew sooner. If you've stayed with me until now, I want to thank you. Not just for watching, but for having the courage to face a topic that so many men your age were never given the space to explore. That alone is a quiet kind of strength. Not the kind that hides behind silence or stoicism, but the kind that comes from honesty, from truth. Because what you just heard isn't just advice. These are lived lessons. Stories drawn from real lives, real regret, and real awakenings shared by men who wished someone had told them these things much earlier. We began by breaking the myth that an erection defines your masculinity. So many men suffer in silence, afraid that their bodies' changes mean they've lost something fundamental. But the truth is, connection and pleasure are still possible even if they look a little different now. You then discovered that masturbation isn't just about the physical. It's emotional, neurological, deep human. When done with intention, it becomes a powerful anchor, something that keeps you grounded in your body and in your truth. You learn that neglect isn't harmless. When your body goes unused, it slowly forgets. But with care and gentleness, it remembers. We talked about the silent toll of porn, how it can dull your sensitivity and disconnect you from real intimacy. And finally, we arrived at a truth most people never say aloud. Masturbation in older age isn't something to hide. It can be a lifeline, a way to stay connected to the part of yourself that still feels, still longs, and still wants to be fully alive. I've met many men in their 60s, 70s, even their 80s, who believed they had nothing left to give or feel. But after decades in this work, here's what I know. Desire doesn't retire. It simply softens. And when you meet your body where it is now, not where it used to be, something beautiful happens. You remember that you are still a man, still whole, still worthy. So wherever you are in life, single, partnered, returning to yourself, or starting again, I hope these truths help you reclaim what was never truly lost. Only quiet, only waiting. Your age doesn't disqualify you from connection. In fact, it may be the very reason you need it now more than ever. If something in this video resonated with you, leave a comment below. Tell me which truth spoke to you most. You are not invisible. You are not finished. There is more life ahead, more strength, more connection if you choose to open the door. And if this video reminded you of someone, send it to them. One honest conversation can change a life. Let's keep breaking the silence together. You deserve the truth. You deserve support. And most of all, you deserve to feel alive again.